Good evening and welcome to our second episode of our scientific and medical discussion with Dr. Suraiya. So I'm very excited about this evening. If you enjoyed last week, I think this week is going to be even better. So I would like to introduce Dr. Suraiya. Dr. Suraiya has completed her Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery training in 1999. Thereafter, she interned at Number One Military Hospital in the year 2000. In 2001 to 2002, she completed her community service in the employ of the Department of Health in the capacity of medical officer. Thereafter, she practiced as a locum at various general medical practices in Pretoria, and then spent the next 2 years engaging her time in courtesy pro bono work as a GP at the Erasmus Pharmacy prior to opening up her own private GP practice. In 2005, she was invited to do an empowerment training for high school students at one of the private schools in Pretoria. She is married with two lovely daughters and is currently residing in Morningside, Sandton, South Africa. From 2010 onwards, Dr. Suraiya has combined the best of both sides of medicine, allopathic and energy medicine, in her practice in Sandton, where she integrates cutting-edge healing modalities to expedite patient recovery and optimize well-being. She is passionate about establishing comprehensive changes on a cellular level using her expertise drawn from all the modalities she's trained in, and is driven to accomplish results and empower her patients to live their best lives, addressing issues in all areas, mind, body, and spirit. Her speciality affords her the ability to apply quantum physics to anatomy and physiology to facilitate structural and biochemical alterations on a cellular level. She is a multi-award-winning doctor, having won her first award in May 2022 for being a global finalist in the category Women in Healthcare, held at a summit in Dubai. This was facilitated strategically by two companies, Hudrat Global and Women's Stature, who collaborated their efforts to bring about the award ceremony. She was then a recipient of her second award in March 2023, with receiving the Sophisticated High Network Excellence Award at the SHE Global Awards ceremony planned to be held in Istanbul, but relocated to Dubai on account of the earthquake. The award was for Best Outstanding General Health Practitioner in the Achievers category. For the third one, Dr. Suraiya was welcomed in August 2023 on an international platform for being a progressive thinker, a dynamic leader, a woman that strives to make a difference in society, and one who makes a formidable impact on others, someone who inspires and empowers. This was called Women of Wonder. Wow. Being a true trailblazer with 15 years of experience, Dr. Suraiya has been hailed as a very unique doctor on account of her style in managing patients, tailoring each session to suit the needs of each individual patient in order to get the very best outcome. In addition to the accolades achieved, she has earned the respect of her peers for her pioneering work in medicine and being the keynote speaker at a national medical conference and various medical webinar platforms. Furthermore, she was spotlighted on a medical TV program, as well as featured in writing two journal articles on two separate occasions in a magazine titled Ladies in Business Global in the UAE. So without any further ado, I would love to welcome Dr. Suraiya Kalla.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Candice, for the very kind and generous introduction. I'm truly humbled and honored to present this information to you.
Light, an ancient form of energy that goes back to the dawn of time. For us, it all begins with the sun, the source of light and life for our entire solar system. Even Einstein concluded that everything we're made of contains light. All life originates with the sun through photosynthesis. Plants and vegetation collect the light, and all living creatures emit light. Humans actually emit infrared light, which can be seen with night vision devices. We've known for centuries that light has many effects on the body. LifeWave's phototherapy patches use light to stimulate the body's natural healing systems, providing specific health benefits. Here's how the technology works. First, a patch is applied to specific points on the body. Where the patch covers the skin, infrared light emitted from the body is reflected back into the tissue. This stimulates the skin, which in turn stimulates specific regions of the brain. The brain then taps into the body's own natural flow of energy and the ability to heal itself. Let's take a look at why this is important on a cellular level. For example, a number of our patch products help counteract free radicals, oxygen molecules that damage cell proteins and contribute to visible signs of aging. When the body is stimulated through phototherapy to release its own antioxidants, these free radicals are neutralized naturally.
In each of our own personal stories, we all became doctors or allied health professionals so that we could help our patients and add the greatest value to them. Being value-driven, it's imperative for us to go back to the raw materials that nature provided us in abundance and add the greatest value to them. Next slide, please. Sorry, can you hear me? Next slide, please. We commenced our lives with 1 billion stem cells, as you see depicted in the picture in front of you, that made healing and repair of all our cells, tissues, organs, and systems rapid and efficient. So healing became a breeze, and regenerating all damage became easy, and we sailed through it. The pluripotent nature of stem cell gives it the ability to become any cell that's required through differentiation, so as to repair and regenerate any organ. Next slide, please. As we progressively age, our stem cells even mutate, slow down, don't produce enough growth hormone, don't move as quickly, go dormant, and our stem cell activity declines significantly. This occurs from age 40 onwards and contributes to pathologies, aging, cognitive decline, and organ and system challenges on account of the unhealthy stem cells that are circulating in our bodies. That's why LifeWave's phototherapy patches are a game changer for medicine and allied health fields, and the best adjunct in managing our patients successfully and affording them the greatest value. Next slide, please. So as soon as we put on the X39 stem cell patch, it immediately uses our own body's infrared light that we naturally emit that normally gets wasted. It puts it back into our bodies and uses our bodies as its own powerhouse to drive the biochemical processes and responses that I'm to detail for you in this presentation today. Next slide, please. So X39 produces a tripeptide called glycyl L-histidyl L-lysyl, composed of 3 amino acids, glycine, histidine, and lysine. JHK has a high affinity for circulating copper ions. These molecules get together and spontaneously form the GHK copper complex. This sets the scene for the actual production of endogenous, brand new, improved quality stem cells, in addition to waking up and liberating our dormant ones. So it converts the stem cells in our skin into universal stem cells that now have a pluripotent nature. That's when all the magic happens, and that's why we are seeing so many miracles with using our stem cell patches. So it may interest some of you to know that the copper peptide was first isolated by Dr. Lauren Pickhardt in 1973. Now the inventor of LifeWave, David Schmidt, has taken this to another level by making this in a wearable form using nanocrystals and photobiomodulation. Next slide, please. So what can we expect on a cellular level once we start patching using X39? So clinically, it's significant for all the following reasons. It increases production of cytochrome C oxidase, which utilizes the final step in the mitochondrial electron transport chain and is one of the key regulators of oxidative phosphorylation. So oxidative phosphorylation produces ATP, which is our energy molecule in our cells. Then NADH, a molecule produced during cellular respiration, gets oxidized and releases electrons. These electrons pass through a series of acceptors in the electron transport chain, releasing energy. Cytochrome C oxidase is a key participant in ATP synthesis. The net end result is to elevate energy production in the cell. Next slide, please. So it belongs to a group of emergency response molecules which are released during injury and come to the body's aid and accelerates the speed of wound healing. Those troops are sent out naturally to any type of injured tissue that has been demonstrated to have a therapeutic role in age-related neurodegeneration and cognitive decline. So I'm going to revisit the specifics on this in greater detail later on in this presentation, so stay tuned. Next slide, please. It adds value to patients presenting with diabetic neurodegeneration and diabetic neuropathy, to the point where the patients that have developed gangrene no longer required amputation of the affected limb. The hypoxic injury completely resolved. We experienced incredible results in 2 patients whose decerebrate rigidity reversed after just 2 months of patching. So basically, their hands were closed and it opened up after just 2 months of patching. So this is something I personally have never heard of. I've never encountered it in all my years of experience being a doctor. So that's very, very exciting. It adds value with exon survival, maintenance of nerves, and repairing brain and spinal cord injuries and damage. In addition, it has been successfully used for the treatment of damaged spinal nerves, spinal segments in the neck, and furthermore, there's been an enhanced ability to regrow broken bone and increase bone density. Of note, a herniated disc also resolved in a 90-year-old. So beneficially altered the expression of human genes involved in neuron function by about 50%. It's been established to improve circulation and lower blood pressure and improve and normalize the heart rate and heart rhythm. So rumor has it, it also normalizes cholesterol levels. It has been demonstrated as well to alleviate neuronal apoptosis in intracerebral hemorrhage. Certain necrosis that traditionally occurs not only at the impact site, but also distally as a result of intracranial hypertension, hypoxia, or disturbances of the microcirculation is completely allayed. Remarkable recovery with muscle fatigue has been established. Systematic improvement in sports performance. In fact, it increases lysine, which is involved in improving immune function, especially fighting viral infections. Patients plagued with chronic viral infections would definitely benefit from an increase in lysine. Lysine plays a vital role in building muscle, maintaining bone strength, aiding recovery from injury or surgery, and regulating hormones, antibodies, and enzymes. It is important for proper growth, and it plays an essential role in the production of carnitine, a nutrient responsible for fatty acids into energy and helping lower cholesterol. I'm going to come back to the cholesterol discussion. I just have to tell you something extremely exciting. Our famous champion boxer, Yagashi, gave a testimonial on how X39 had a phenomenal effect on his recovery post-fight. So that was really good to hear. So speaking of cholesterol, I'd like you to just imagine that our body is a small town. I'd like to just draw on that analogy. So the main troublemakers in this town are cholesterol. They have some accomplices too. The main partner in crime is triglyceride, the fat molecule. Their job is to roam the streets, causing chaos and block all the roads. The heart is the city center of this town. All roads lead to the heart. When the troublemakers increase in number, you know what happens? They try to disrupt heart's function. But our body town has a police force too. So the police force is HDL, high-density lipoprotein, which is the good cop who arrests the troublemakers and puts them behind bars, also known as the liver. The liver then throws them out of the body through the drainage system. However, there's a bad cop too. And this one is called LDL, low-density lipoprotein, who's power hungry. So LDL releases the troublemakers from jail and puts them back onto the streets. When the good cop, HDL, is outnumbered, the town becomes chaotic, naturally. So if you are not happy to live in such a town, it's time to start patching using X39. With every patch, the good cop's HDL will increase and the troublemakers' cholesterol, triglyceride, and HDL will decrease. So it'll increase HDL and it will decrease LDL. It also improved glutamine, which is involved in intestinal repair, strengthening the lining and improving absorption of nutrients. So it supports our body's digestive system and our immune systems in a very, very nice way. It's made in the muscles and transferred by the blood into different organ systems. Glutamine actually reduces muscle fatigue and improves exercise recovery. It helps to reduce red blood cell damage, preventing them from becoming sticky and misshapen and badly behaved. So this essentially helps blood to flow normally and adds a lot of value in sickle cell disease. Glutamine, in addition to all of that, also plays a role in burn care by speeding up the healing of burns and reducing related infection. So we've seen it repairing protecting area proteins like filaggrin and proteins of the tight junction. In addition, increasing collagen synthesis in our fibroblasts, hence improving skin firmness, elasticity, and clarity. Reducing fine lines and wrinkles, rough skin, and basically improving the overall skin appearance. So it also increases keratinocyte proliferation, which increases keratin production that benefits skin, hair, and nails. Furthermore, it has been demonstrated to improve tissue remodeling, both in skin with scars, and appears to have a very positive effect on cancerous cells. So immunohistochemical analysis revealed an increase in the proliferation of cell nuclear antigen, PCNA. This is clinical significance in that anti-PCNA, you can go back, anti-PCNA antibodies are considered a rare but highly special marker for systemic lupus erythematosus. Studies showed that they can be present in other autoimmune diseases as well as viral infections and tumors. So cancers of the cancer examples would include thymomas, cancer of the ampulla of Vater, urothelial carcinoma, skin cancers, squamous cell carcinomas of the esophagus, and malignant and non-malignant GIT tumors. Infections implicated here are hepatitis B and C. Next slide, please. So it's been able to suppress 70% of genes involved in the development of an aggressive metastatic form of colon cancer. And this indicates its capacity of regulating various, go on back, various biochemical pathways. Okay, you can stay there. I'm done. You can stay there. The copper peptide resets cells to a healthier, younger state by altering gene expression. So it does this resetting our genes to a healthier state is done through mobilization of P63. Yeah, there's the P63 depicted in the slide in front of you. So tumor protein P63 plays a very important role in the development and maintenance of epithelial tissues. It's highly expressed in the basal layer of the stratified epithelia of a variety of tissues, including the skin, breast, and prostate, where it maintains self-renewal, development, differentiation, and morphogenesis of various epithelial tissue. So P63 can act as a tumor suppressor gene. The P63 protein functions as a transcription factor, which means it attaches or binds to certain regions of DNA, like you see in the picture in front of you, and it controls the activity of particular genes. So research shows that the stem cells reset the programmed cell death cycle in several different types of cancer cells. So that would be pyroptosis and apoptosis. Pyroptosis is a programmed cell death mediated by gasdermin. It's also known as cell inflammatory necrosis, which eliminates infected and all damaged cells. Imagine telling a cancer cell to just die and commit suicide, and the growth and proliferation of it ends right there. This is exactly what happens with apoptosis. So it's strongly activated genes of the ubiquitin proteasome system used for cell cleansing by regulating protein degradation of all misfolded, damaged, or unneeded proteins to maintain cellular homeostasis. It's clinically important with cancer as dysregulation of the UPS quality control pathway can lead to the accumulation of oncoproteins or degradation of tumor suppressor genes. So now oncoproteins drive tumors, and our tumor suppressors prevent them. Accumulation of misfolded proteins, as seen in cases like Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's syndrome, may result as well from impairment of the UPS machinery. It's been established to block cortisol's anti-regenerating effects in joints. So you experience the good effects of reducing inflammation without the bad effects of preventing healing. X39 normalizes our cortisol levels. Let's take a deeper look at why a normal cortisol is so important. It allows us to experience life with an increased brain performance and increased mental alertness. It regulates immune responses and cellular metabolism. In adipose tissue, our fat cells, cortisol increases lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fats for energy. With increased stress, we have an abnormally high secretion of cortisol, which inhibits bone formation or production by osteoblasts. So it suppresses calcium absorption in the blood. It reduces production of type 1 collagen. It inhibits fibroblasts, which leads to poor wound healing. In the liver, cortisol promotes gluconeogenesis, which is the production of new glucose molecules. It increases insulin resistance in tissues, which means that insulin becomes far less effective in moving glucose into the cells. So now glucose is in the blood rises, and this stimulates the release of insulin. This effect of the high cortisol is called diabetogenic. So in the muscle, cortisol stimulates proteolysis, which is the breakdown of proteins. So in short spurts and normal levels, it can boost your immunity by limiting inflammation. But in high levels, it can lead to inflammation and a weakened immune system. And then entropy sets in and everything starts breaking down. So our bodies are designed to handle stress for 10 days in a row without all these systems breaking down on account of the excess cortisol released. However, from day 11 onwards, if our stress levels are not adjusted, we don't have a stress release, and our cortisol is still rising, then all these organ systems start breaking down. So even if you are a healthy person and have a normal stress response, which is called eustress, patching with X39 is going to maintain a normal cortisol level, giving you all the benefits without the detrimental effect of cortisol and high stress levels. So it will afford you the ability to cope better with a high pressure lifestyle. It is induced anti-anxiety, anti-aggression, and anti-pain activity within 12 minutes. So that's super impressive. It increases superoxide dismutase activity, that's antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. The copper peptide suppresses nuclear factor kappa B molecule, which is used to primary many diseases of aging and immune function by inducing the expression of various pro-inflammatory genes, including cytokines and chemokines, and also participates in inflammasome regulation. So our nuclear factor kappa B molecule has been implicated in the pathogenesis of bowel diseases, multiple sclerosis, atherosclerosis, systemic lupus erythematosus, type 1 diabetes, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and asthma, so COPD and asthma. So NF-kappa B plays a pathogenic role in various inflammatory diseases. X39 has been demonstrated to reverse the gene expression signature of COPD, which is manifested by emphysema, inflammation, lung tissue destruction, and a significant reduction of lung capacity. With the use of X39, our lung cells have detected So this has been demonstrated that it has protected lungs from damage from both bleomycin and lipopolysaccharide-induced injury. Bleomycin is a medication that destroys quickly dividing cells, such as cancer cells. It's anti-neoplastic antibiotic. So LPS is a key molecule from the membrane of gram-negative bacteria that triggers innate immunity and acute inflammatory responses. When the stem cells are activated, it also increases GABA, which is GABA-aminobutyric acid, which is a neurotransmitter that has an anxiolytic effect and induces sleep. So it's like a brake pedal for your brain that calms down the activity of the neurons. GABA in the brain changes the levels of BDNF, and BDNF controls the activity of stem cells via neuroprogenitor cells. So BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which plays an important role in neuronal survival and growth. It serves as a neurotransmitter modulator, and it participates in neural plasticity, which is essential for learning and memory and improves our short-term memory. Good sleep is also related to higher serum levels of BDNF. Epinephrine levels dropped by just over 20% from baseline and remained lower, indicating that X39 reduces stress reactions significantly. The same is true for histamine. There was about a 40% from baseline, indicating less adrenal stress, so normal cortisol and less inflammation. Then leucine utilization also increased from 20% to 40% above baseline, indicating that protein repair and synthesis and aids in the growth and repair of muscle and bone has been increased and established. It also helps regulate blood sugars and is necessary for wound healing and the production of growth hormone. Next slide, please. It increases glutathione levels by about 40% by increasing cysteine, which is involved with glutathione formation. So this indicates that it improves immune function, detoxification, and regeneration of our organs. It assists with mitochondrial dysfunction, and that's very significant because it's associated with normal aging. It's involved in the expression of integrin alpha 6 beta 1 that you see in front of you. Integrins have diverse roles in several biological processes, including cell migration during development and wound healing, cell differentiation, and apoptosis. So integrins recruit many intracellular signaling molecules and can activate survival, proliferation, and mobility signaling pathways as well. Integrins are transmembrane proteins that mediate interactions between adhesion molecules on adjacent cells and/or the extracellular matrix. Their activities can also regulate the metastatic and invasive potential of tumor cells. Next slide, please. So tryptophan utilization increased from 10% to 20% above baseline. It's a precursor for the neurotransmitter serotonin. So this is our happy molecule, the hormone melatonin, and vitamin B3 niacin. Serotonin regulates our appetite, sleep, mood, and pain, and melatonin regulates deep natural sleep. So tryptophan improves mental energy and emotional processing. So of note, tryptophan deficiency can cause pellagra, which is what you are seeing in front of you, which can lead to dementia, inflammatory skin rashes, and abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, mouth sores, and weakness. Next slide, please. So X39 regulates the behavior of immune system to optimize its function. But how specifically does it do this? So let me discuss the components of the immune system so they can truly appreciate the value of X39 is going to add in reviving and repairing immune function at every level. Hematopoietic stem cells that we saw in the beginning of our discussion are produced in the bone marrow. So let's call those multipotential hematopoietic stem cells that are undifferentiated and immature. They give rise to erythrocytes, which are red blood cells, platelets, and leukocytes, which are our white blood cells. The leukocytes, the soldiers of the immune system. And that's what I'm going to focus on. So leukocytes differentiate into myeloid progenitor cells and lymphoid progenitor cells. Myeloid progenitor cells are our neutrophils, basophils, eosinophils, mast cells, and our monocytes. So these are first responders. Let's think of them as different branches of the military that are enlisted to take out the bad guys, the foreign invaders that we're trying to get rid of. So each one has a different job description. Neutrophils either stay in the blood and they patrol, or they migrate into tissues to track disease-causing pathogens. So they are like the investigators that track the chemical trails and phagocytize pathogens, which is equivalent to eating them and digesting them. Eosinophils plays a major role in defending the body against parasites and is involved in allergic reactions. So basophils are also involved in chronic allergic reactions, such as asthma. Our mast cells release histamine in response to allergens. Monocytes give rise to macrophages and dendritic cells. The macrophages are like the garbage truck of the immune system. They talk to other immune cells to help fight off pathogens and any rubbish that they trap. Dendritic cells are phagocytic communicators. They ingest pathogens. Then they kind of like show the antigens, which is a marker or a tag, if you will, that every foreign invader has that allows the body to recognize it as a foreign invader. So the appropriate troops can be sent out to defend the body and destroy the disease-causing pathogens. So it presents it to the T cells. And this is when the lymphoid progenitor cells enter the scene. They give rise to lymphoid cells, which are our T cells, B cells, and our natural killer cells. The CD4 positive helper T cells help coordinate the immune response. So we can think of them as the liaisons of the immune system. The CD8 positive cytotoxic T cells destroy abnormal body cells, particularly those infected by a virus, but also cancer cells, and all damaged cells are also targeted by the CD8 positive T cells. Then we get our regulatory T cells, which are involved in regulatory affairs. And finally, our natural killer cells. So these are like, let's think of them as the neighborhood assassins, because that's exactly what they do. B cells are considered naive until they're exposed to a pathogen, which is when they differentiate into plasma B cells or memory B cells. Our plasma B cells are like little antibody factories that pump out antibodies. It's the antibodies and not the B cells that directly stops the invader. Our memory B cells retain that information about a pathogen, about pathogen exposure, so that it can help us to map out a more elegant response and a more rapid response the next time that this specific invader sneaks in. Next slide, please. Some mast cells and macrophages are innate immune cells that differentiate from early common myeloid precursors and reside in all body tissue. And you can see how the picture demonstrates their circulation, differentiation into macrophages and the dendritic cells, and their interactions with the immune system. Then we have antigen-presenting cells. I mentioned the antigen-presenting cells. Those are like the tags that allow the immune system to recognize a foreign invader. So next slide, please. Then we get our MHC class 1 molecule, which primarily present peptide products that are synthesized in cytotoxic 8 positive T cells. So we see how each molecule, each component of the immune system so respectfully does its job that it was enlisted for, and they work together to protect us and keep us healthy. Next slide, please. Some pathogens exploit or inhibit the UPS, ubiquitin proteasome system mentioned previously to evade immune responses. If proteasome does not recognize them, then they are displayed on the MHC class 1 molecule that you just saw, and destroying them becomes compromised. many pathogens actually suppress this pathway and bypass our built-in soldiers. So one example that I'd like to touch on is the coronavirus. That's exactly what it did. It snipped off the antigen, so that's how it took over our cells without detection, creating that it did. So if we have an immune system, then we would have the ability to fight and win with any invader and be at our peak all the time. When the invader gets the better of us, like it did in the case of the COVID-19, it then leaves our cells in a mess, just like you see in the slide in front of you. So just as the scene in the slide depicts the aftermath of a war that we lost, that's exactly what happened when patients were infected with coronavirus. The DAMPs and the PAMPs, the DAMPs are damage-associated molecular patterns, and the PAMPs are our pathogen-associated molecular patterns. So the DAMPs and PAMPs are one of the reasons that we are experiencing the brain fog, fatigue, and all the other symptoms of the long COVID syndrome. The debris is still stuck in those damaged cells. If the immune system's efficiency in mopping them up and cleaning the cells does not occur, then this presents with all symptoms that we are currently seeing with the long COVID syndrome. So imagine this. You're trying to travel somewhere and you hit a roadblock with lots of rubble and you can't pass through. So your journey is slow, sluggish, or completely impossible, and you damage your tires. You basically never reach your destination. They run flat and you can't continue with your journey. This is what happens when the DAMPs and PAMPs and the debris from the aftermath of a battlefield in a war zone on a cellular level still prevails. So you get nowhere and you get there very slowly. Next slide, please. Our body towns are such an incredibly sophisticated system with an innate intelligence that knows exactly what it needs to do and when it needs to do it, provided it's functioning at its peak. And it has all its ducks aligned in a row, ready to do what it needs to be done. We've all experienced this at one point or another, when life was easy and peachy. In our younger days, when we could eat anything, metabolize life in any way we chose, and rely on our body towns to function perfectly, so we could just enjoy our day and have fun. Now for some good news. Once we start patching using X39, the cleanup crew can get to work again. And that's our ticket to become young and carefree once again. What a blessing. Next slide, please. So a discussion of, oh, I see it changed already. Apologies. A discussion of stem cells will be in, keep it here, please. A discussion of stem cells will be incomplete. No, go back one. Discussion of stem cells will be incomplete without exploring all forms of and sources of copper peptide and stem cell therapy. So the X39 is the only one whose safety profile has been well established and is cost effective. It's a fraction of the price as compared to the injectable form and the IV infusion and the CRISP, the CISPR, etc. So the injectable form presents as a risk for infection and is far more expensive. The IV infusion requires at least 3 months of preparing the patient's immune system. So this involves at least 3 months of hospital stay in isolation with immunosuppressant medication. Even with the best match from the best donor, there is no guarantee that this will work. And the risk for the graft versus host rejection can be the biggest nightmare that ends in the demise of the patient at the very worst. At very best, if all does go well, then the patient is looking at lifelong anti-rejection medication. So unfortunately, they no longer qualify and will never be candidates for patching. I would rather recommend starting to patch before you reach this stage. God forbid this becomes your reality. Also consider the inconvenience with this route and that it takes on the patient, their families, and their financial portfolio. Speaking of which, the CRISPR method of using mesenchymal stem cells costs about $2.2 million and is still experimental, so inconclusive. Not to mention how much of a dent that will create in your bank account. So hands down, our X39 wins. Next slide, please. The effect of having an efficient immune system translates into an efficient lymphatic system, which is our house cleaning system. So clean your cellular environment assists us in feeling good emotionally too. As in the water wind, there's no denying the impact your body and mind systems have on each other and the dynamic interplay between the two that exists on a cellular level. It still orders the day. For example, if we just clean systems, that alone will contribute to efficiency in the immune system. So this will boost and kick up our self-esteem a couple of notches, and it'll contribute to being a consciousness raiser. When there's a decline in overreactions, there's a decline in engaging the immune system in fighting battles that are unnecessary and register as allergies and intolerances. If we are not absorbed with fighting a cellular battle like this daily, we would have far more energy and resources available to improve our concentration and our attention, improved memory and cognitive ability. This would impact our young learners in a major way. The ones especially that struggle at school and universities with challenges that they really didn't sign up for. We would then see a direct decline in ADHD and ADD. So if everybody is feeling about themselves, this would have a ripple effect on the entire world. And that alone will make this world a better place. For me, personally, using X39 is like turning on the light in my cells so they can conduct themselves the way God Almighty intended them. Before life happens and everything just kind of goes south. If our cell membranes were truly healthy with no perforations, our immune systems would not overreact and produce an allergic or intolerant response altogether. The problem is created when the border patrol regulating what substances are allowed in and out of a cell is distorted. So unhealthy cells with perforations have boundaries. So everything that enters is registered as an invader or foreign body that needs to be taken out via the soldiers of the immune system, even if this is indeed a healthy substance or not a foreign invader at all. So it's like being at a place at the wrong time, as innocent as that. What happens next is our immune systems go rogue and overreact. This is what produces autoimmune conditions. So in the case of cancers, it's misbehaving aggressive cells that need to be put in their place so they don't take over and invade. Revisiting the small body town analogy once again, I wonder, who enjoys a cluttered environment? Imagine entering your house at the end of the day after a long, hard day's work, and you notice your house cleaner just sitting on the couch, dozed off, and no cleaning has been done. She just set it out and rested for the day. So another case scenario is, so here in this case, sorry, she decided to just take the day off and literally do no work. So you walk in and every room is a total mess. Dirty washing, dirty dishes everywhere. Trip over toys, stumble and fall. You bump into things that are not placed in their correct position. How much fun would this be? Now imagine your housekeeping and work does some things, so when you walk in, everything appears to be in order. But if you take a closer peek and you look under your rug, you discover that all she did was just swept up all the dirt and placed it there. So the garbage has not been removed. It's still there. But it is now hidden. She did not mop up those damps and pamps and misfolded clumps of damaged, useless proteins that are now becoming a huge inconvenience to you. To bypass the dirt, because by now the mess is too huge to clean up, and it's so overwhelming that the DNA then decides to alter its expression. Because it's the only way it can get everyone in the body town's attention and get everyone to do what they're supposed to do so that the town can run smoothly once again. Before we know it, new proteins, new disease is born. In summation, I'm going to share my own personal story with you. I'm Dr. Suraiya Kalla. I'd like to share with you my experience with using the stem cell patches. One of the days during this Ramadan 2024, I suddenly presented with a severe epigastric pain, which is right about here, suggestive of a duodenal ulcer. I was fasting and did not want to break my fast to take an Nexium. So, out of desperation to gain relief from my excruciating pain and nausea, I decided to try the LifeWave patches. I put one of the patches on my epigastrium and the other on my right shoulder that was also in pain on account of sustaining an injury falling off a treadmill towards the end of last year, 2023. I was pleasantly surprised when half an hour later, my epigastric pain disappeared completely. So I then moved the patch to another place on my injured right shoulder that registered pain, because the patches need to be worn for about 12 hours, and I didn't want to waste that. An hour or two later, the pain in my right shoulder subsided. I have to tell you this. When one of my patients first told me about it and introduced me to it, I thought it was a total gimmick, and he persistently had to convince me over and over again to even purchase it from him. I did this very reluctantly because at that time, the only thing that helped relieve my pain was Tremacet, which is an opioid. I haven't taken any other pain meds since, and that's super exciting. In addition, post-surgery, every time I lifted my arm like this, it felt so heavy. My physiotherapist knows that I always described it as lifting a heavyweight dumbbell, because that's exactly how I experienced it since my surgical repair. From an orthopedic perspective, the resolution from this heavy feeling is only apparent and only resolves a year post-surgery on account of the inflammation. Mine disappeared that same day and hasn't returned since. My physiotherapist, in fact, commended me on my excellent improvement. My mobility has significantly been ameliorated, enough for her to be super impressed with my progress. She is under the impression that I've been doing my exercise homework regularly. Although I love her, I hate the exercises and have only done them for about 2 days at the beginning of Ramadan. So I have gotten away with being non-compliant with my physiotherapy homework on account of using the patches. I just got back from a wedding in Pretoria where I spent the week visiting my mom, and I decided to test drive them on her. She's currently 79 years old, so I patched her with an X39 at the back of her neck and an X49 below the belly button. She woke up the next morning looking fresh and well rested. She said she had the best sleep she's ever had in years, deep and nourishing with no disturbing dreams. 2 days later, I woke up hearing someone choking, gagging, coughing, and struggling. I ran to see who it was and what was happening. Much to my dismay, I discovered it was my mom, who had just poured what she thought was water from the kettle and drank it, which led to the horrid episode. It turns out my sister was cleaning out the kettle overnight and descaled it using vinegar. My mom's throat was irritated and burning and, with all the corrosive action on account of ingesting vinegar. I immediately grabbed the X39, X49, and an Aeon patch and placed the X39 at the bottom of her neck, the X49 below her belly button again, and the Aeon patch just right about here, just above the supraclavicular notch at her throat where the acute pain was and irritation. About 45 minutes later, her symptoms subsided and her throat felt much better. She was no longer in pain. These experiences convinced me of the value of the patches because the proof is truly in the pudding. I prepared a list that I would like to share with you of the scientific merit that I've come across thus far, so I'd like you to just watch the space for further information on the patches. Thank you and have a blessed day. More minutes, if you don't mind, to elaborate further on that video. So the day that I wore the blue dress that you saw, I was miserable and I had to force myself to get ready to attend my nephew's wedding. I really just didn't want to go, but I could not dress myself. I required assistance to actually get into that dress. My injury occurred at the most inconvenient time of my life. I was at the peak of my career. Was fully booked with patients for over a month. In addition, I was headhunted by an overseas hospital that was prepared to fly me, fly me up and down to service their patients whenever necessary. Dates for my first flight were already established. So in preparation for this new opportunity, I decided to get into shape. And within 7 minutes of my day one of training, I fall down a treadmill and I sustain an injury and break my shoulder. And with that, have a life-altering experience where I was forced to close my practice prior to surgery. I felt like Humpty Dumpty, but far worse. With all my hopes and dreams crushed, my career goals completely destroyed, my body broken up, and there was absolutely no king's horses and no king's men to put me back together again. At that stage, I was unable to see any silver linings. I went from being a Panado person to requiring opioid medication to manage my pain and get through the day and the night. At that stage, I literally went from becoming a doctor to a patient, suddenly became a patient. And I must say, I make a much better doctor than I do a patient. In fact, I would clearly say that I was the worst patient ever post-op. I complained nonstop about my pain, begged the nurses every few minutes to contact my orthopedic surgeon, and insisted he put me on morphine. Of course, he declined. So I never got to try that. And I honestly believe that my pain levels warranted it. So I was a very dissatisfied customer in that sense. Very happy with my orthopedic surgeon. So really blessed to have had him in my life when he did. My life, but that at that stage comprised of 3 times a week visits to my physiotherapist. And I was forced to do 5 times a day of physiotherapy every day. To survive the pain of physio, I took a Sina leave prior to each physio appointment. I came back home to Santon about 2 days before my family left for the December vacation for Morocco. My physiotherapist insisted that I take my pole with and continue exercising, as she felt that I was behind in my mobility at that stage, as per their protocol and analysis on my last visit before she closed for the year. So I'm thinking, I hate the pole with a passion, right? We didn't get along very well. And I'm touring Casablanca, Rabat, Fez, the Atlas Mountains, and Marrakesh for the very first time, going with one suitcase for myself. And there was no way in hell I was prepared to compromise luggage. So I intentionally left my pole behind, and I was secretly very relieved to have a break from it. So there was not even 1 minute to do even one round exercise on the entire holiday, let alone 5, which was part of my protocol, my healing regimen. So upon my return from the holiday, I was fed up with the side effects of my medication, which comprised of Targinact, PRN, Cineleave in the day, and Tremacet at night. So in between, if I still required anything, I took Panados. So out of sheer desperation, To just get my life back on track, I decided I had nothing to lose, so I finally tried the patches. I already bought them, but at that stage, I was not confident in flying solo without my physio's guidance, so I was not ready to try the patches. I was told my recovery and mobility would fast forward, but I was still skeptical. This is what the patient who sold them to me actually told me. I did not go through any of the material at that stage on the patches yet, so I started, and the rest is history. My physiotherapist contacted me to find out why am I not coming back to see her. She agreed that my mobility was going to go backwards, and I would have to start from scratch and then needed more than a year of regular physio. So I did only 2 more days of practicing my physiotherapy homework, and both were the night before I visited her, once in February and once in March, because I was afraid that she would find out I was non-compliant. So I just, practiced for that reason. She was super impressed on both occasions, and that in all her years of practice, she had never encountered anyone who did better without her. And on my last visit, she said my mobility was 100% back to normal. So she asked, "What have you been doing?" I told her, "I'm patching." I chose the path least traveled by. I patched. And that alone has made all the difference in me getting my life back on track. So instead of a year of physio, I got away with 3.5 months. I was so happy about that. I don't know who I'd be or where I'd be today if I did not hit rock bottom with nowhere else to go but grab a patch and slap it on and give my body the gift of healing. I spent my whole life always helping people switching on their lights, but I was unable to do that to myself. I needed to patch in order to get that. And that's my story. And I thank you for your attention and the invitation to share it with you. Over to you, Candace.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Suraiya. It's always so wonderful to hear your stories and just the beautiful explanation of everything this evening. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay. Now we're just going to finish the end of the presentation with a couple of slides about X39 itself. And in order to do that, it is my pleasure to introduce Tanya Rosales, the founding member of Bimimi Medical, a leader in the advanced skincare industry, specializing in medical light therapy, peptide, and other non-invasive regenerative treatments. With over 15 years' experience, Tanya has cultivated a deep understanding of the medical aesthetics field, working closely with plastic surgeons, dermatologists, and aesthetic clinics. Her unique perspective as both serial entrepreneur and an industry specialist has made her a trusted consultant for practitioners and consumers alike. Drawing from her background in psychology and energy healing, Tanya bridges the gap between medical innovations and patients' needs, ensuring that the products and services Bimimi Medical offers align seamlessly with the holistic well-being principles. So please join me in welcoming Tanya.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you so much. Suraiya, I must just say that I enjoyed your presentation. It was so much fun. I had giggles. It was wonderful. So, okay, so I'm going to talk about LifeWave. So we asked the question, what is LifeWave? So with portable stem cell technology in a patch. LifeWave patches are formulated to activate your copper peptide, which reactivates your own stem cells. So David Schmidt, he is the CEO, he's a scientist, and he's the inventor of LifeWave, a company that was founded in 2004. LifeWave has over 180 patents, specializing in age reversal. In 2008, David started focusing on stem cell research. X39's recent patent took 10 years and $4.5 million to bring to market. So the patent we have been issued will be in effect until 2040. And we've just taken a small excerpt out of it, which talks about the embodiments as a result of elevating the copper peptide, including activation of stem cells, improving energy, elevation of antioxidants. But there's actually more. I just want to put it here. Elevation of antioxidants, reduction in inflammation, management of pain, improvements in stamina, elevation of collagen production, improved wound healing. And that's just the X39 patch. That's amazing. Okay, so how X39 works is it's a proprietary form of phototherapy. It uses patented nanocrystal technology, and it reflects the body's own light to activate. It's non-transdermal, no drugs, chemicals, or stimulants. It's non-invasive. The benefits of X39 is there's increased strength, mental clarity, reduced inflammation, restored muscle and skeletal conditions, increased stamina, improvement of sleep, energy and vitality, and improved skin appearance. So X39 seeks to do as our health, a state of complete physical, mental, social well-being. X39's long-term results, as per case studies on our website, that is www.thisisitinfo.com, you'll find that in the first few days, 4,000 genes begin to reset. Within 6 months, the brain becomes balanced. Within 6 weeks, the brain becomes balanced. Within 3 months, the collagen is increased. And within 6 months, the heart reverses in age. So it's not an anti-aging product. It's an age-reversing technology. So how to wear your X39 patch? Our clinical studies were done with a patch either behind the neck, or right on the back of the neck, or 2 fingers below the navel. It is, however, effective anywhere on the body. So you can patch wherever you want. Some people say patch where the pain is. You wear it on for 12 hours and off for 12 hours to repair and rejuvenate your body. We recommend that you use it during the day because of the increase in energy. So once you have worn it for 12 hours, you take the patch off and you throw it away. The next day, you put a new patch on and you repeat. It's essential to drink plenty of water when you're patching. David Schmidt recommends a 90-day protocol in order to feel the effects or to receive optimum results. I would say at least a year, but we'll go with David Schmidt. Although that is recommended, we have seen results in weeks, days, hours, minutes, and seconds. So it's important to know that our bodies do not all respond in the same way. So everybody's experience with patching is different. There are some results here. It's a topography map of a 77-year-old woman. So we placed X39 on the back of her neck. Session 1 is an image prior to her patching. And there we can see inflammation in the brain. She has a total lack of brain coherence. In session 2, she was imaged 3 weeks after patching with X39, and there was no more inflammation in her brain. So there's an improved brain coherence. By session 3, which is 6 weeks on X39, she had a complete turnaround and improved brain coherence. So can you note that brain was hyperactive? So her brain calmed down dramatically by the second visit, and after wearing X39 for 3 weeks, and her brain remained calm after wearing the patch for more than 6 weeks. Here we have some wound healing images before and afters. The one on the top left hand is a finger that got severed, being slammed in a door. And after 21 days, you can see the finger is completely rejuvenated. Below that, we have a gentleman that was in a car accident. That is his scar and tissue repair after only 7 weeks. The top right-hand images is a skateboarding accident, and this is just after 5 days. And then very interestingly at the bottom, I hope you're able to see it, but this is psoriasis. So before the lady started patching, 12 hours later, 36 hours later, and then 10 days after. It's quite miraculous. And these images all speak for themselves, but maybe just take a moment to have a look and see what the before and afters from age looks like. It's also important to note that these images are quite average for the types of results that you expect to see on X39. Generally speak, oh, okay, that's okay. All right, so before and afters for hair growth. So after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, you can see a massive difference. In the middle year, after 6 weeks, on X39, it's miraculous. David Schmidt recently in one of his interviews recommended that if you do a little bit of microneedling together with X39, the results are improved. Thank you. All right, and now we have some pro athletes that use our technology. So in the Olympics, one of our favorites is Michael Phelps. There was a bit of a scandal around this one, is that the gold medalists, their medals were actually taken away from them because the Olympic panel thought that they were using some kind of a drug-based patch. And so they had to have many tests, and there was a panel of people that had to decide whether or not their medals could be returned to them. David Schmidt actually went in to speak to the panel, and they were quickly convinced that there was no doping, and their medals were returned to them. David Beckham, and then Lorenzo Savadori, a superbike champion. He wears X39 in the center of his forehead to help with focus. Sean May and Mike Tyson recently used our patches for his big fight. So many, many athletes. These are just a few of them.
LifeWave. David Schmidt began his career in medical device design and manufacturing. In 1996, he moved to Atlanta, where he returned to his passion for inventing by joining an inventors club, winning numerous awards, and eventually forming a company based on one of his inventions.
One day I was giving a presentation for a government contractor, and they invited me to be part of a design team for one of the Navy's next generation mini subs. So we were trying to find a way to keep people alive longer, and I thought, well, I personally object to this whole idea of using caffeine and stimulants to stay awake, so maybe there's a new way that we could approach this. So I worked on this for several years and developed the LifeWave prototypes. The problem was that we had just gone through 9/11, and the U.S. military was interested in weapons, not survival equipment. And it normally takes over 7 years to get a new product through the Navy. So I decided, well, I know that consumers are really going to love a technology that improves energy without having to use stimulants. So that's why I decided to go to the public with it.
And with those patch prototypes, David found his calling, and by summer of 2002, he launched the LifeWave company.
That first year of LifeWave was pretty rough. I remember I didn't get a lot of sleep. A very typical day for me was getting up at 6 in the morning, going about my day, doing work, phoning acupuncturists, medical doctors, athletes, personal trainers, working all day doing that, and then getting up late at night to make patches because we didn't have a patch manufacturing facility. And along the way, met one person that was interested in investing money. And he said, well, you know, I don't really know much about science or medicine. Could I have a medical doctor review this? And I said, sure. And as it turned out, that was Dr. Steve Haltiwanger.
I spent about 4 hours or longer interviewing him, and then came back a few days later and talked to him again. And so we had about 6 hours worth of conversation over a few days. Every question that I asked, he answered, and I asked him very detailed scientific questions. So I realized this man actually knew what he was talking about. So I was very impressed, and I wrote a paper that was my way of explaining to the technology from more of a biological point of view. And I sent this paper to a number of friends that were in medicine to get a review. And one of them was Dr. Carl Merritt out in California, and he shared it with Coach Richard Quick at Stanford. He was a coach of the Stanford women's swim team.
So one day, sitting in my home office in Atlanta, Georgia, and I get a call, and the voice at the other end of the phone says, David, this is Richard Quick. And then he tells me that he's been using the LifeWave patches in conjunction with Dr. Merritt, and he found that during the first 3 weeks of using the patches with his athletes, that 6 out of the 8 swimmers broke their personal lifetime best in their event. So this was absolutely huge. This was one of the breaks that I had been looking for.
That which seems extraordinary today will be commonplace in the future. If something can be done in 20 or 30 years in the future, why can't we do it today? That's what David Schmidt has done with LifeWave.
We got an opportunity to have our product on Olympic athletes. We got to have world exposure of the technology by having the athletes compete in the Olympic Games and in the Olympic trials. And I am very grateful to Coach Quick for that opportunity.
At the Olympic trials in 2004, a scandal erupted. The Stanford swimmers were doing so well that some of the other coaches accused them of using performance-enhancing drugs in the patches.
I met before the U.S. Olympic Committee and had to explain how the patches worked. They took the patches down to UCLA Microanalytical Lab, had the patches examined, and found out there weren't any drugs in them. The athletes drug tested negative, so they were completely clean. And we started to make national headlines because people wanted to know what were these patches and why were the Stanford women's swim team using them and doing so well with them.
This is a product that will really help people. It'll help people have more energy. It'll help them focus better so they can be more successful in whatever their endeavor.
Hans, we have a question in the chat. Is there? Do we have a moment just to answer that?
Is it the one right at the bottom? How is the activation of stem cells medically measured? That is definitely one for Dr. Suraiya.
So there's about 80 clinical trials that Tanya mentioned. There were tests done by various universities. Harvard University was one of the universities enlisted. And I think I came across that they did further about 500. So it was done through so the X39 copper peptide was demonstrated in urine, saliva, and blood. And they measured it at different times. They did double-blind randomized trials, and they measured it at different times using different parameters with different sets of and groups of people. So there's so many clinical trials. I would suggest you go to thisisinfo.com. Maybe we could show that, share that in the group, so that everybody that would like to go through the published medical articles and the actual information where there's details on the actual clinical trials, then this would be the place to start with. I would start with going through that to see the actual, because every single one has a different trial, different parameters, and a different way that they demonstrate it. They use bioelectric methods. They use urine, blood, saliva. So there was the topography mapping that you saw Tanya show us with the brain and the inflammatory responses and the changes that were elicited via that route. And then we had various doctors that did their own personal tests to
Oh,
demonstrate the
okay.
changes in patients.
Thank you
Any
so
other
much.
questions?
I don't see anything else in the chat. I think
Okay,
we are
cool.
good. Yeah, I think we're good. So thank you so much, Dr. Suraiya and Tanya. Really appreciate your
Thank you,
time.
Karen.
And I
Yeah,
know
thank
that
you.
we're not going to see Dr. Suraiya for a while, just over Ramadan, but we look forward to her return. But yeah, if we've got any other doctors that wish to collaborate with us, we are more than happy to do so. So just reach out to myself, Tanya, or Dr. Suraiya. And other than that, thank you so much. We will see you next week, and that will be next week, Tuesday at 7 o'clock for our normal product introduction Zoom. So have a blessed evening and take care, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.